Okay, good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee at Glenmore House. Particularly warm welcome to those members of the public with us tonight. I'm Councillor Tom Reeve and I'm chairing this meeting. In the event of an emergency and the sounding of an alarm, the emergency evacuation procedure is to leave the hall by the fire exit, the one behind you, and congregate in the car park. Anyone requiring assistance should remain in their seats and you'll be assisted from the building. Anybody who wishes to follow the agenda from their tablet or smartphone can do so by going to the Council's website and following the links to Your Council and Council meeting calendar. This meeting is being filmed for a live broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, and an archived version will be available to view after the meeting finishes. The broadcast will be suspended during any adjournments in proceedings and if the committee resolves to consider information as exempt business. Members are reminded that microphones must be switched on and spoken into clearly for the broadcast. And please, can everyone present in the meeting also ensure that your mobile phone is switched off or in silent mode. Thanks. And so I'll start by inviting members to introduce themselves, and I'll start with the St. Mark's councillors across from me.
Got a different microphone. Hello, I'm Councillor Liz Green and a councillor for St. Mark's and Seething Wells Ward.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Diane White and also St. Mark's and Seething Wells.
I'm Councillor Jürgen of St. Mark's and Seething Wells.
Councillor Allen, Tolworth Ward.
Andrew Waldridge, Tolworth Ward.
Mariana Gonçalves, Tolworth Ward.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jackie Davis from Berrylands Ward.
Hello, good evening. I'm Anita Sharper from Berrylands Ward.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Alison Holt and I represent Surbiton Hill Ward.
Peter Hurling, I represent Alexander Ward.
Councillor Ian Manders, Alexandra Ward.
Okay, thank you. We also have officers present who will be presenting reports and they'll introduce themselves when they do so. Before the transaction of committee business, I just need to make a statement regarding two highways items originally scheduled to be considered in this meeting. The Verona Drive parking issues, this item was deferred to the 17th of March as the Highways Department is experiencing staff shortages due to team illness, which significantly affected their delivery capacity. And Tolworth Close, the experimental traffic management order consultation, the initial 6-month period following the commencement of the ETMO was concluded at the end of December 2025, and due to unforeseen implementation delays. Consequently, given the intervening holiday period, it will not be feasible for officers to have the required committee report prepared and ready for this meeting. The report will instead be presented at a future committee meeting for consideration. And just a change in the order of agenda items. Okay, so we're going to take the community plan first, followed by the planned maintenance, and then we have a planning item to consider. So moving on to public questions, we have a period of no more than 30 minutes for questions on matters relevant to the committee. We like to encourage questions to be submitted in advance so that officers have an opportunity to answer them, although that's not absolutely necessary. Questions will be asked in the order in which the notice of them was received, but and I'll take the questions in the following order. Actually, we only have one tonight, and that is John Davison. So I'd like to invite you to come to the table. And just ask you to be as concise as possible. Try to keep your questions to sort of 3 minutes. Herman will let you know when there's 30 seconds left. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Hopefully you can hear me.
I attended the committee meeting a year ago, actually in January last year, when the Surbiton plan was being discussed, and I gave a bit of feedback about it, and the Surbiton plan got ratified at that meeting for last year. And the plan states you've got a strategic commitment to make the borough greener, fairer, safer together. Now, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to come back to any of the committee meetings in the last 12 months and haven't really been keeping up with the achievements in the plan. So I've got a very easy question for you, for the committee, and that's to ask, which item in the plan are you most proud of achieving in the last year, and which strategic commitment has it contributed to?
Okay, well, thank you very much for the question, and certainly welcome your interest in this. I'll just start by noting that we have an item on the agenda this evening, which is the annual review of the Surbiton Community Plan, and that report is going to set out in some detail what has been delivered over the past year. And importantly, it links each achievement back to the plan's objectives and to the strategic commitments of greener, fairer, safer, and together. Speaking more generally, if I had to characterize what I think this committee has done well over the past year, it is listening to residents. We've consulted widely, sought ideas from the community, and tried to respond to what people have told us matters most. That's not to say we always get everything right, or that we can do everything that residents ask of the council, but we approach this work in the spirit of continuous improvement, sort of learning as we go and adjusting as needed. We also have made good use of neighbourhood funding to empower residents to lead projects themselves. That includes supporting works such as the Millennium Green Design Study, improvements at Queen's Promenade, and backing resident-led groups that have organised community events, including VE Day commemorations and a range of local festivals. Those projects contribute strongly to the together part of the plan. I think on a more personal note, one area I'm particularly proud of is the ongoing work at fish ponds. Over several years, we've improved the ponds, delivered all-weather paths, and supported the Friends group in their stewardship of the space, and we've done this in some other green spaces as well. That work reflects the greener commitment, but also shows what can be achieved when the council and residents work constructively together. I think finally I would just say I would encourage anyone interested to look at the annual review report this evening, which will be delivered by our neighbourhood manager, James Geach, because it provides a fuller picture of the progress that we've made in all 4 of the strategic commitments. Did you have a supplementary question?
Well, thanks, Chair. I appreciate the feedback about that, and it sounds like you're very supportive in terms of bids that come to the committee and supporting, work by local people and residents and so on. I guess some of the feedback that I probably would like to give in the, about the forthcoming plan is to see perhaps some more proactive items from the committee rather than just reactive, and perhaps getting a better understanding of what the committee can do to, introduce initiatives that would support the neighbourhood, as opposed to waiting for bids to come in. We didn't get any bids in any one year, which might be unusual, but if you didn't get any bids at all, what could the committee do to actually initiate some things instead of waiting for bids to come in? So I've got, some ideas about how the plan might get improved a little bit along those lines.
Right, yes, Councillor Shopper.
Thank you so much, David. I would say it's because I'm bifocal, John. I think what's really important is as the chair was mentioning about engagement, and I certainly would love to work with you. I think as the portfolio holder for communities and for the grants programme overall, I'm very keen to see how that develops. I think this is a clear framework for us to work with. I think it's important that officers have a clear path as well. And certainly I think we couldn't do what we do without the support, help and support, and the ideas and suggestions coming from residents, from the community. I think this is community cohesion, I think also is extremely important. I think that partnership working, that ability to understand the needs on the ground and for residents to know that if they come to us, we'll listen to them. I think that's very, very important. So just to reiterate, I'm really looking forward to working with you over the coming months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Chair.
well, thank you very much, John. I believe we might see you again in a few minutes when we come to talk about the neighbourhood plan.
Questions, I could stay here.
Yes, you're more than welcome to take part in that discussion as well. So I don't believe we have any further questions.
No, Chair, I have received no green slips.
Okay, fine. Okay. So moving on then.
Petitions, the next page.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry?
We have-
Oh, yes, you're right. Yes, sorry. Okay, thank you. No, you're right. Thank you. So we have no notice of intention to submit any petitions tonight. And apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. No apologies were received.
Okay, thank you, Herman. So declarations of interest and attendance at site visits. So members are asked to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or any other registrable or non-registrable interests relevant to items on this agenda. Do members have any declarations of interest? And I'll start with myself. In the interests of openness and transparency, I just wanted to declare that in relation to the planning applications, I know Mrs. Manpreet Mahal, representative of the applicant professionally. She was a former independent member sitting on the Audit, Governance and Standards Committee, which I also sit on. But I consider the acquaintanceship would not prejudice my consideration of the application. So I'll remain in the meeting for the debate and voting on the agenda item. Do you have any other declarations of interest? Councillor White and then Councillor Gonsalves.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the planning application, it mentions several times Westfield Road. I live on Westfield Road, but I actually live at the other end, and I don't feel it has any effect on my decision-making tonight. So just to note. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gonsalves and then Yoganathan.
Thank you, Chair. So in the interests of openness and transparency, I declare that in relation to the consideration of the agenda item 7, planning applications, I also know Mrs. Manpreet Mahal, representative of the applicant, professionally, as she is a former independent member sitting in the Audit, Governance and Standards Committee that I'm also part of. I've made a decision to leave the room during this debate and not take part in the voting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Yoganathan.
Hello, Chair. I've been around for too long and I know most of the objectives. And also on the same house, one of the young man who's part of us and he was a student, we know that person as well. That doesn't necessarily mean I am going around and talking things with people. So I will be sitting here and being part of the whole thing. Just for record purposes, I'm just saying that.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Councillor. Do I have any other declarations of interest or site visits to declare for the planning application? Councillor Waldron.
Yeah, very similar to my colleague to the left, Mariana. For transparency, and given my prior involvement with Mrs. Mahal through the Audit, Governance and Scrutiny Committee, I will, in fact, be excusing myself from this item to avoid any perception of conflict.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other, just according to the Planning Committee procedure rules, formal and personal site visits conducted need to be recorded in the minutes that such a site visit took place. Did any, in respect to the planning application, no visits were arranged by officers, but do members, just for the clarity, did any members make a personal site visit? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to minutes from the last meeting. Do members agree to confirm the minutes of the last meeting as a true and correct record? I'm hearing, okay, unanimous agreement. Thank you. Right, so we shall move on to...
Number 8, sorry.
Right.
Yes, this one.
Oh, right.
Excuse me,
Right.
Chair. Can
So
I
now-
ask a question, please, Chair?
Oh, yes,
Sorry.
Councillor White.
Just the order of the agenda this evening, I just wondered, given so many of our public gallery are here for the planning application, would it be possible to do that first? Or is there a reason, perhaps there is a different reason why you put it in the other order?
Yes, thank you. I thank you for your consideration. I think the two items, fairly short items to proceed the planning application, and
I was going to say, I'll probably end up going about 20 minutes for the plan maintenance, so I have no objection if it helps to, just out of goodwill, given the amount of people here, I imagine they're not interested in listening to me talk about plan maintenance, so... Yeah, like if that works.
yes, we have...
Obviously, if you do wish to stay and listen to me talk about plan maintenance, you're welcome.
Okay, my thinking was to, because we had John Davison here for the community plan, that I wanted to take that item first. But that is a good point that Councillor White has made, and I'm seeing that John doesn't seem to be
No problem at all, Chair.
seems to be happy with that. So. I'll relinquish my seat.
Have any
Okay.
order
All right. Okay, well, we're nothing if not flexible here on the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee. So let us, if that's okay, if our planning officer is ready, let's just see if I'm ready. Right.
Number 7.
Yes, here we go. Okay. Right. Now, here we go. Okay. So moving on to the planning application. Before we move to that, I just need to announce some housekeeping arrangements. Regarding public participation, there's a registration scheme for residents and applicants wishing to participate in the planning applications that are considered by this committee. Members of the public who have registered to speak will be invited to come forward to the table in front of the public gallery at the appropriate point. And just second, members of the public are reminded that the planning application process is constrained by the need to have regard to current planning policy at national, regional, and local levels, as well as all other material planning considerations, including case law precedent. The decision-making process is often described as quasi-judicial because local planning authorities have to act reasonably within the bounds of planning law, and the above considerations are not free to determine planning applications simply because of the weight of public opinion. So for the purposes of debate, the officer recommendation will be moved prior to consideration of the matter by members. This does not indicate that members are predisposed to a decision one way or the other. So we'll now turn to the planning application. 25-01980 FUL, it's just 3 The Mall, Surbiton. And you, members of the committee and meeting participants, may refer to Appendix C of the agenda pack from page C1. So, right, the planning application involves erection of a single-story rear and part first floor rear extensions and rear dormer roof extension to facilitate loft conversion. Oh, sorry, I'm not going to read that because I think that might actually be wrong. So I'm going to invite Joel Turner, Principal Planning Officer, to set out the application.
Good evening. Good evening, members. Thank you for the introduction. I am presenting to you this evening a planning application for single-storey rear and part first-floor rear extensions, as well as a rear dormer roof extension to facilitate a loft conversion. Collectively, the extensions would allow the conversion of the dwelling into two flats, two 3-bedroom flats. So just to commence this evening, here's an aerial photograph with the site marked obviously in red there. So generally the character of the area is predominantly semi-detached dwellings arranged around rear garden spaces. In terms of restrictive planning designations, the area is a local area of special character. This is a non-designated heritage asset. And the site is also located within Controlled Parking Zone, CPZ, Zone R, Riverside. This, I guess this plan reiterates the point from before, so you can see the site location of the application site. And just to run you through a few photos, so this is the front of the property. One thing you'll notice at this point is the fact that, quite unusually, the site does have 2 crossovers for vehicle parking. This is the rear of the site, so there's an existing extension at the property, and the dwelling has previously been extended to the side as well. And this is, look, on the left-hand side, you'll see the property looking to 1 the Mall, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see 5 the Mall. Another photo looking towards the properties, down the rear garden, towards the properties on Westfield Road. So, I've already gone through the proposal. So on this image, this is a site plan. It sort of gives you an indication of what's being proposed here. So there is a larger extension on the ground floor level, and then at first floor level, it's not as deep, but it's part width first floor rear extension, and then also a loft extension as well. As you would have noted from the committee report, a lot of these all of these individual proposals have been assessed individually. Now, as a technicality, these extensions probably couldn't be implemented concurrently, so that's why we've undertaken a cumulative assessment of these extensions. You'll also notice on here that there's a proposal to subdivide the rear garden into 2 separate gardens, so each flat would have their own rear garden space. This is the existing ground floor area, so it's laid out as a conventional dwelling. And then we're implementing the extensions here. So on the ground floor, we have a 3-bedroom single-story flat. And then on the first floor and the loft floor, we'll have another 3-bedroom flat as well. This is the existing elevations of the property, so you would have seen before from the photos. And this is all the extensions put together cumulatively. So you'll see that particularly on the proposed north elevation there. There's no real change to the front elevation of the property. A section diagram as well. The bin storage you'll see here in a proposed cycle storage. So the cycle storage would be located in the individual rear gardens, and both would have side access, obviously down the side of the property, with refuse areas located at the front of the property. And obviously, locating the cycle parking within the individual rear gardens would allow them to avoid significant visual clutter within the front garden. Do I hand back to you now, Chair, or do you want me to go through the material considerations now?
Sorry, I believe we'd go through the material considerations now, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So as outlined within the committee report, you would have, hopefully, I'm sure you have all read through. We're looking at the principle of development this evening. We're looking at character and design. And around character and design, I'd encourage you to focus on the cumulative assessment of those extensions, on the neighbouring amenity, the living conditions of the future residents, the biodiversity net gain, transport and highways considerations, refuse storage, and fire safety.
Okay, thank you very much. So can I invite the registered objector, Ross Carragher, who's been formally notified of the application through a letter of notification and has replied to the consultation, to come forward. So you'll have up to 5 minutes to address the committee, and Herman will let you know when there's 1 minute remaining and when your time is up.
Okay. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ross Carragher and I live at number 5 The Mall, immediately adjoining the application site at number 3, as you've just seen. I form part of a growing group of community members that have come together to object to this application, both formally in the process and otherwise now. I want to be very clear at the outset that I'm not objecting to development in principle. I am objecting to this proposal because, as submitted, it causes clear and demonstrable harm to neighbouring amenity and fails to meet the Council's own adopted planning policies and evidential standards. I'm going to focus on 3 specific matters that directly affect neighbouring occupiers. Firstly, the loss of light, outlook and overbearing impact. So the combined effect of a near 6-metre rear extension, a new first floor rear projection and a large rear dormer, we believe represents a substantial increase in bulk and massing close to the shared boundary with my home. Despite this, there is no BRE compliant daylight and sunlight assessment and no robust 45-degree analysis from the affected habitable room windows at my house. Without this evidence, the committee cannot reasonably conclude that the proposal complies with policy DM10 of the Kingston Core Strategy, the Residential Design SPD, or London Plan Policy D3, all of which seek to safeguard daylight, outlook, and residential amenity. This isn't a minor technical gap, it goes to the heart of whether the impact is acceptable. Secondly, loss of privacy and overlooking. The proposal introduces multiple new rear-facing habitable room windows at first floor and roof level. While some of these spaces may previously have been improved in isolation, the key issue is now how they are going to be used. Only one window is proposed to be obscured. The remainder relies solely on distance despite the increased height and intensity of use. Again, this conflicts with the Residential Design SPD and London Plan Policy D3, which require development to avoid undue loss of privacy for neighbouring occupiers. Thirdly, intensification without adequate mitigation. The conversion of a single dwelling into 2 self-contained flats fundamentally changes how the site functions. It increases activity, noise, refuse generation and use of outdoor space, yet there's been no acoustic assessment, no analysis of intensified use, and no meaningful mitigation proposed. The rear garden is subdivided in a way that creates constrained and potentially conflicting use, while bin and cycle storage are compressed into the front of the site, in our opinion, introducing visual clutter, and that's at odds with good residential design. Members may hear reliance placed on fallback positions from earlier permissions. However, those permissions were all assessed on the basis of a single dwelling. What is now proposed is materially different. Planning policy requires the committee to assess the proposal before it as a whole, including its use and intensity, not simply the physical components in isolation. In planning terms, the test is whether the harm to neighbouring amenity is acceptable and whether it's been properly evidenced and mitigated. In this case, it hasn't. In closing, Chair, this proposal fails to safeguard neighbouring amenity, relies on untested assumptions, and does not demonstrate compliance with the Council's own amenity and design policies of the National Planning Policy. Or the National Planning Policy Framework's requirement to maintain a high standard of amenity for existing residents. For those reasons, I respectfully ask that the planning permission be refused. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carragher. If you could take your seat again. And can I invite the registered objector, Mr. Andrew Cobden, who has not been formally notified of the application through a letter of notification, but has replied to the consultation, to come forward to the speaking desk. And again, you have 5 minutes to address the committee, and Herman will let you know when you have 1 minute left and when your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, Chair and committee members. My name is Andrew Cobden. I live opposite to the rear of 3 The Mall and speak for local residents objecting to this application. I'll demonstrate the proposals do not represent high-quality family housing, that neighbours will be negatively impacted, that a poor precedent is a material consideration, and suggest some solutions going forward. We challenge many statements that support a recommendation for approval. Over the past 18 months, the applicant has sought consent incrementally for ever greater massing. The Council have approved these applications in good faith. The committee report states that individually these consents cannot be implemented. The designs differ materially. So this is not a fallback. All is not lost. This application has to be approved for all of those past consents to be implemented concurrently. The applicant has gamed the system. This is the end game, to drive the highest possible value dressed up as family housing. This is why none of those previous consents have yet been implemented. The committee report rightly identifies this dwelling as an HMO and not a family house. It relies on the principle that 2 high-quality family houses will be created as a result of this application. Let's look into that. The bedroom sizes in square metres may meet nationally described space standards, but the room dimensions do not comply. The first floor flat is wholly unsuitable for family use. The entrance does not allow access or storage for a pushchair, and there is no bath, an essential for young children. For a child living in this top floor flat to go out and play in their garden, they leave via the front door, navigate a presumably locked gate, and cross another family's garden, distance from supervision. Disabled access is even more challenging. Inclusivity is disregarded, and these are not sustainable in a social context. It seems obvious that the layouts are suited to sharers and for 12 people, as acknowledged in the committee report at 13.1. If the council wish to see 2 family homes, why then do the recommended conditions not include a future prohibition of HMOs? Easily committed under a unilateral undertaking. Knowing the landlord's history with HMOs, we would expect the occupancy to increase from 7 currently to 12 adults. No families in sight. The rear extension is wholly out of keeping with the architecture of Jones-built homes that create the special character status. The front driveway is featureless and functional. The MPPF and core strategy promote sustainable development. As council hold all the cards, officers have the ability to negotiate this application and improve its content, impose biodiversity net gain, PVs and batteries. Why haven't they? In 7.3, the committee report states that concern over setting a precedent is invalid as a planning consideration. That is not so according to the MPPF, when it could result in a cumulative negative impact on the area's character and infrastructure. There are thousands of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom flats in Surbiton. There are only hundreds of 4 bedroom houses. As families grow, they seek more space and an accessible garden. The families that miss out are driven out due to the lack of quality family housing. This is recognised in para 6.102 of Kingston's core strategy. There is a likelihood that this house will return to a family home in time. If this consent is granted, that possibility is lost forever. The only reason the landlord is pursuing this planning strategy is because a 12-adult HMO is worth more than a single family home. As such, it is inevitable that developers will replicate this model on many more homes in the area, and the council will be powerless to defend. This has an impact on social infrastructure that supports families. Fewer family homes lead to a lower child yield, challenging the viability of Maple Infants and Sasam schools, potentially leading to closure. Ditto for scouts and guides, nursery places, volunteer-run community sports clubs. That is why setting a precedent is a material consideration. Chair, the previous consents relate to a single dwelling. Conversion to flats is a wholly different proposition. The applicant relies on a new consent being granted. We urge you to stop this before it becomes a dangerous precedent. If the committee has to approve, we request conditions.
Time is up.
Unilateral undertaking to prevent HMOs in the future.
Sorry, I'm going to have to...
Can I just read my final 3-4 words? That's all it is.
Okay, go ahead.
As Ross didn't take up all his time.
Well, that's not really the issue.
The redesign for inclusivity, including baths and pushchair storage, enhance whole plot landscaping and biodiversity, and require PVs and solar.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, right. So do any members of the committee have questions of clarification to the objectors? So if you do, can you raise your hand? Let me know that you have some questions for the objectors. Okay, right. Can I ask the objectors to come back to the table? Right, so we have, there'll be up to 10 minutes for questions from councillors for the objectors. Herman will let us know when there's 1 minute left. So please proceed, Councillor Green.
Thank you. It's a question for the first objector, who I believe lives next door, number 5.
Yep.
But I wasn't clear whether you were speaking as yourself at the point I'm about to mention, or whether you're speaking collectively.
Okay.
Because you mentioned overlooking.
Yeah.
And the windows, and only one being listed as being obscure, which is the bathroom at the back in the new extension. There is a shower room that would be onto the side of your property, and then in the loft space, a bathroom with a window onto the property. Is it those two windows that you were talking about in terms of your property, or were you talking more generically overlooking from habitable rooms?
Well, I was talking about both, I think, the obscured ones that you just mentioned, and then, yes, I think the extensions will overlook, you know, at least the immediately surrounding houses, including my own.
But yes, but not your own. That's why I was confused, because from there they're not going to be able to look in.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Do any members have any further questions? Okay, you go right ahead, Councillor Green.
It was a question for the second one. I noticed, Andrew, that you mentioned family use and that there's no baths or buggy space. And this may sound like a very facetious question, but you do realise families aren't all just with very small children. A family may have teenage children or other, you know, it's still a family, regardless, or an elderly parent constitute a family. But my question really is, you've made the point about HMOs. So currently there are 7 people living there. This has the capacity up to 12 because it's 6 double bedrooms effectively. Do you have any knowledge as to, in my head, HMOs are usually single people. And I don't know whether that is a question for you, a question for the officers. That's how my head works. 1 person per room, predominantly, not a couple, because there'd be double bedrooms probably. Is that your understanding of it, or do you have some knowledge you can help impart to us that would help us understand why you believe it will be a 12-person HMO?
Well, it's identified in the committee report as 6 times 3.
Yes, you could have 6 people in there.
Or 6 times 2, rather. But the important thing is, how do you enforce it?
No.
You might have 1 person on the tenancy, you might have 2 persons on the tenancy. How do you know whether there's 2 people sleeping in that bedroom or not?
Yeah, I mean, when I've lived in...
doesn't have an enforcement
Yeah, absolutely. When I've lived in HMOs, when I first graduated, yes, my boyfriend used to come and stay over. And sometimes there'll be 2 of us in the room, even though I was the sole person on the tenancy. So is that what you're... Because I wouldn't class that one, that was a family home, not in this area, but where I was near university. But would that class as 12 people if they all had partners coming over? I'm trying to understand the likelihood, I suppose, that it would be 12 people because that's the maximum capacity, as opposed to 6 people with somebody coming to stay over. Maybe it isn't a question for you. Maybe the officers can't answer it either, and I'm probably giving pre-warning to the officer on that one, who may or may not be able to understand.
I think I can't answer your question because I haven't monitored and surveyed HMOs, but I do know that enforcement is a real challenge in this environment.
It is.
I think the issue is that the process of applying, the strategy of applying and grossing up that built space is leading to overdevelopment and leading to the risk of HMO. So why, if you're trying to encourage family housing and and the house isn't currently recognised as a family house because it's an HMO, why wouldn't, if you're promoting family houses, why wouldn't you put a blanket restriction on HMOs going forward? That would safeguard the community's perspective in the worry that this might be over-intensively used.
And may I come back on that if nobody else is wanting to go?
I believe we have Councillor Yoganathan, but we have plenty of time. So let's go with you.
So you would be suggesting that some kind of restriction on the equivalent. I know you know about planning, and I will ask the planning officer as well. A restriction on a future HMO at the property, so that it would only be used as a if it was to be let, it was let as a unit, all in one, rather than three individual rooms. Yeah, as a family house. We know that individuals can live, again, students tend to live as classed as a family unit, 4 people renting one house.
If it's let to students as currently, it's an HMO.
Ah, okay. But that's if they're let as single rooms. If they're let as a whole unit together...
Members of more than one household are considered an HMO. And
I think I'm going to need to ask the officer for the...
councillors are nodding in agreement.
Right. So you're suggesting that a condition that would prevent the future conversion to an HMO would at least alleviate an element of your concerns?
The council and the owner and future owners. And I think it would address some of the concerns presented by the community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Yoganathan.
Hello, David. Andrew, sorry. I was going to ask that question. I think you have answered very effectively to Liz Green.
I'm sorry, Yogan, could you lean a little closer to the microphone, please?
Sorry.
Could you scooch in a little, move in closer to the microphone?
Okay. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, the reason I'm coming to you is another view. And yes, I can understand all the reasons you are talking about it. Let's wait and see what the planning guys are saying it. Having said that one, you are also happy there are 2 flats coming into it, yeah? Are you happy with the 2 flats?
No, I think it should be kept as a family house. And I go back to the point I read out, which is if this consent is granted, then the chances of that house returning to a family house with a proper garden is lost forever, because they won't ever return. They won't ever reconnect those 2 flats. The granting of this consent enables all of that piecemeal consent that's been granted over the last 3 years or so. I think it's a pity, and I think the community feel it's a pity, that these houses will be divided into flats. The risk comes, if there is value in it, which is what I suggest there is, that more will happen. And the fundamental special character of the Mall and of Westfield Road will change irreparably.
Followed on from your answer, Andrew, because that planning permission is already been granted, yeah? According to what you are saying, if we are hearing it, HMO can create another difficulties, yes? When you talk about all the 3 plus 6 is 12, yeah, maximum. The Kingston Council needs some accommodation, 3-bedroom houses for some of the vulnerable people or whatever it is. Are you happy? Because I think you also said it at the last minute. As long as there's a condition on either HMOs or in terms of who are the people coming in terms of inclusivity, and to make sure that the area is a conservation area and everything, it's going to be not damaged. Would that go, would you think about that with the conditions attached to it?
I think there are a couple of questions there. Can the consents that have been granted already be implemented? No, because if you look at the design that is submitted now, it is different. The windows are different, the roof line is different. The 3 consents that have been consented, only I think the ground floor and possibly the roof extension could be implemented. The rear extension at 1st floor level, which I think is the thing that
1 minute
most
left
of us, won't be able to be delivered because it fundamentally impacts on that ground floor extension and that roof design. Going back to your question about the HMO, could you repeat it for me? I've lost my train of thought.
I've completely forgotten. Because having said that one, you know, the recommendation is to go ahead with it. And the planning, whether we like it or not, it has already been issued. One of the things what we can do is to put a condition in such a way that it is blended with the existing things and make use of the 2 flats instead of HMOs would be a better one. At least we can do it, and being inclusivity in terms of the back as well as the front.
If I may, so I think overall our position, our collective position is we do not want this to be approved at all.
I'm sorry, our time for questions is up. I hope
what Andrew had left at the end there was if the worst case scenario happens and this is approved, you should potentially put those conditions in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, we've had quite a generous 10 minutes here, so I think we've gone through that. Thank you very much for answering the questions. If you could return to your seats, I'd be grateful. Thank you. Right, so I now turn to Joel to present the material planning considerations and address, where necessary, any issues raised during the public speaking.
Sure. Thank you. Just want to clarify a few points on the fallback position, and one of the objectors kind of did allude to it, in that the thing that would in terms of the existing consents that couldn't technically be implemented is the first floor rear extension. The ground floor extension and the roof extension do not touch each other, so they're independent of each other. It is the first floor extension that, in relation to the existing permissions, means that on a technical basis, and I emphasise the point technical basis, it could not be implemented as 3 separate permissions, and that is why the applicant is seeking all 3 permissions along with to facilitate the conversion of the flats. There was some comments on no daylight saving, daylight sunlight assessment was submitted, no acoustic assessment. I'm not sure what an acoustic assessment would tell us. In terms of the point seemed to be around the noises that could be generated by the potential occupants. We don't know what potential occupants would make, what noises they would make. That can't be demonstrated through an acoustic assessment. Similarly, with a daylight and sunlight assessment, because at first floor, the proposal does comply with the 45-degree lines, there's no need for a formal daylight sunlight assessment. In relation to the point around 12 people, so under the London plan, the way we calculate floor space is if it is a double room, it has the capacity for 2 people. That doesn't mean 2 people will stay in it, because a double room would be bigger than a single room, and therefore a 3-bedroom 6-person flat would require more space than a 3-bedroom 5-person flat, because the rooms are bigger. And that's just the way we calculate floor space in terms of policy D6 of the London plan is based on the technical housing standards as to what constitutes a double room and what constitutes a single room. Now, a single room is 7.5 square metres to 11.4 square metres, and a double room is anything over 11.5 square metres. So in these flats, as they all have bedrooms that are bigger than 11.5 square metres, we have to use the 3-bedroom, 6-person calculation. I mean, there was sort of some comments about the potential use of this as a HMO. Now, the point was raised about a unilateral undertaking. If members thought that such a condition was necessary, this could be done through condition rather than unilateral undertaking, if that's something that members thought was necessary. The applicant has applied for 2 flats. The application form mentions market sale flats, and that's what we're asking you to assess. HMOs are almost slightly irrelevant to this application, but if members thought that a condition to that effect was appropriate, we could consider a restriction of permitted development rights from Class C3 to Class C4.
Okay, so Right, thank you. I will now move the recommendations as set out on the report, which the application to be approved subject to conditions. That is the motion. Do I have a seconder? Yes, thank you, Councillor Green. So I can now open this up for debate. So can I start by asking if anybody has any questions? Excuse me, I'm just getting to this. Can members please raise your hand if you have any questions for the officer? So I have... So, Councillor Herlinger to start, and then Councillor Holt.
Thank you. Can I ask the officer on 12.8, which the objector sort of raised about number 5. The officer's written that there's not to be expected any material impact on the amenities or living conditions of the occupant of number 5, which the objector contested. Could I sort of ask him to give a bit more reasoning why he got into that conclusion?
So if on this image, number 5 is to the left of the image, if you look at the proposed first floor plan. So those red dotted lines there are drawing out the 45-degree angles from the closest windows to that property. So the first floor extension does not breach that. The ground floor extension itself could be implemented regardless of what you decide to do this evening. So there will be potentially some impact. It's not completely on the boundary though. There is a walkway in between the two, but the extension in itself could have some impacts. But that has already been approved through the prior approval process and the planning permission process, and therefore there could be some potential impact on number 5 there, but there is still a separation distance between the extension and number 5.
Okay, no follow-up question? Okay, Councillor Holt.
Thank you. I have a few questions. I don't know whether you want me to do them one by one or whether you want to me to read them all out.
I can write them down as you go. Yeah.
Okay. There was some mention about disability access, and I'm particularly thinking of into the flats themselves, but also to the gardens. And you know, it is quite a narrow pathway. I just wondered if that was, you know, if some assessment had been done for that, because it does look narrow from the drawings, and I can't say that I'm completely au fait with what the size is and what's the requirements for the disability access. So that's the first one. I can see from the picture, you know, of the front of the house that there's already paving, and that the bins are there. I know that it's not something, I think it seems to, having looked at the Google Maps, I can see that other buildings do have the refuse at the front. It's not something that we do in my ward, you know, because they're probably they have other spaces for their bins to be. So I don't normally like to see bins at the front, but I see that that's already been set. So my two questions are that the bins, is it permeable? You know, or will they have to do something about the paving, or are we stuck with the paving at the moment because it is all paved over? And I think there was some comment about that, and that it is allowed to have the bins at the front is my second one. There was some comment about whether a family bathroom would have a bath. And I think I've asked this question of officers before, but I just want to check it again. I was told the last time I asked that you don't actually need to have a bath in a bathroom for it in a family house. So I'm just saying that, I'm just checking that because that came up as a point. I'm just thinking of my own house, and we don't have a bath in the main family bathroom. So I think things have moved on. So I just want to check whether that would be a planning consideration. And the final bit was about your HMO position. You said it restricted permitted development. That just means it would come back what does the impact of that? Does that mean it has to come back to planning if they're planning to take it not as two separate flats, but back to what it is at the moment, an HMO? So that was really, what does that condition actually mean? If we're going to look at doing the condition, does that mean they come back to planning?
That is correct. So I'll just start on your last question there. So effectively, at the moment, without an Article 4 direction in place, a dwelling can change from a dwelling to a HMO for up to 6 people without any permission whatsoever. Yeah. So effectively, what you could do is you could potentially put on a condition which says you can't do that. Class C3 to Class C4, you cannot do that. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you require planning permission to do it. Correct. So such a condition, if you felt that was necessary, would require a planning application along with a licence to convert any of the potential flats into HMOs. In terms of disability access, that hasn't been considered as part of this application. There's no policy requirement for it to be. This only comes in for major applications, 10 units or more, where there's a 10% requirement that requires M for three dwellings. In terms of the bins, so at the moment, there's a bit happening down the street where people sort of do different things. The benefit of the proposal, I guess, was it would put these in enclosures, so you wouldn't see the physical bins, and you'd have more of a formalised structure there. In terms of the bathroom, again, there's no specific requirement to have a bath as such. If you're like me, I hate baths, so personally, so there's no physical requirement for a family dwelling to have a bath.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor White.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I just ask, coming back to the... I thought you'd gone over there, about the HMOs again, and we're talking about, say, the bedroom sizes can have 2 people in, that's okay. But if it had to be an HMO, if it was an HMO, it's not just the bedroom size that has to be a certain size, it's the kitchen has to be a certain size. So do you know that? Does it meet that already? Because if it doesn't, then that would rule out it being an HMO. Obviously, if we were to put that condition on, and then they'd have to be inspected, so it could stop it at that point. But is that something, do you happen to know your calculations for what amount of kitchen size or whatever needs to be? So that could potentially stop that actually happening. Just to be very, very clear yet again, because I know we've said it a few times, the ground floor extension and the loft can go ahead, whatever we say tonight, although that obviously won't facilitate the 2 flats, so necessarily, so that's okay. And then just as an extra point, especially for the Westfield Roaders here, we've got 2 flats in one house in Westfield Road, and they're purpose-built, though. They were purpose-built, weren't they? They were. Are they not? I thought they were original by Jones.
You're not allowed to talk to the residents.
Sorry. Yeah. Good point. Sorry.
That was
disregard that.
No, not promoting the idea, but that was just a thought. So thank you.
I didn't quite get the second question. Sorry.
It was just the clarification that it
kitchen space.
Well, kitchen space is my main question. Okay. Thank you.
So, sorry. I mean, I've seen many an application for a HMO in my time. This does not look like a typical layout. These flats proposed, as you'd note within the committee report, are significantly larger than the minimum space standards outlined within policy D6 of the London Plan. For example, I remember off the top of my head that the first floor and loft floor flat is 17 square metres larger than it's required to be. You'd be asking me to put a hypothetical here, it could in theory be approved for a license for a HMO, in theory. But with HMOs, typically you see them, quite compact, whereas this one is proposing a 34 square metre kitchen and dining area. So they would have to be very, very luxurious HMOs if this was proposed. In terms of the point on the extensions, what I would say is, as I said, the proposed first floor is about 17 square metres is the minimum space standard. If you took away that first floor extension there, which says 14.3 square metres, it would still have adequate space to become a 3-bedroom flat and meet the minimum space standards.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you have any follow-ups? No, yeah. Thank you very much. Councillor Green, please.
Thank you. A few questions as well, actually. There's one on the plans, one window that is listed as obscured. I think in past experience, if it does get permitted, that needs to be conditioned, because otherwise it can just be film put up and then taken down again. I seem to remember from past applications. But also, is there a reason why the other two windows that point at number 5, which appears to be 2 more shower rooms, why they're not listed as obscured glazing? So one is on the first floor, and then there's one on the roof, on the loft conversion as well, that points towards number 5. That's the first question. Second one, I know it's all paved at the moment, and I think others have raised this, but I think one of the objectors' actual letters said that, because we get copies redacted of every piece of information that's been sent over to us, that one of the... Can you bring up the front? Anyone that's at the front of the house? Yeah. So on the right-hand side, where there's a proposed bin store, there is some greenery. I'm guessing most of it is in number 1s and just sort of spreads into number 3s. But it would obviously need to be cut back, which it currently isn't, because it doesn't look like there's a fence or anything. But we often put in soft landscaping conditions, because I feel that there could be some soft landscaping there, even if it's not a lot and it's leaving 2 parking spaces. And I think it would be good to do that for biodiversity reasons and just to soften the nature of the road. It's a very pretty road, and all bits of greenery help. Another issue that was raised in the letters of objection, as opposed to the residents speaking this evening, was about soundproofing to number 1. And I see that there is a condition about soundproofing between the flats, if it was to be granted, but not necessarily soundproofing to number 1, which it would share a party wall with, obviously. So if you could just tell me about that. Could you address the question of PVs, of solar panels, that was raised by one of the speakers? Again, it does just seem like a good opportunity if it was permitted and we were allowed to add in things like that. And then again, if it was permitted, there's nothing on its construction timings, which is usually one of our standard conditions to stop people from operating on a Sunday and a Saturday afternoon, usually, because it's antisocial to be doing construction work at those times. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got 5 questions there. Thank you.
Sorry.
So I think there's a slight misunderstanding here. The window at the first floor that I think you think it's a window. It's actually a blocking up of a window.
Ah, okay.
So there's no actual window there.
So where it says shower, that's
yes.
not a window?
No, that's blocking up a window.
Oh, okay, cool. That makes sense of that one then.
On the first floor there, I mean, it's a window. If you look at it from here, it's a very small window over a toilet, and it would only be looking at the neighbour's roof. So I'm not sure there's too much of a concern of overlooking of that particular. I think it would be in their benefit.
Sorry, it has been known for certain genders to stand facing a window when there's a toilet in front of it. Some people do, I believe, looking straight out of it.
I think in those instances, it would be almost self-explanatory that that window would be obscure glazed.
But it could be added.
It could be added. In terms of the soft landscaping, I mean, if I look at this layout here, I have the bin storage on both sides. I don't know where I could possibly get any additional soft landscaping in the front, because even in between the two car parking spaces is the access outside the front door, which needs to be kept free for access and for emergency services. So I'm not sure if, I mean, when we're asking for conditions, we're asking for conditions based off them not providing the information already. Now, what they're proposing in the rear garden is some paving and some lawn. So there's not much more detail required as part of that. But what I would say to that as well is, when an occupant moves in, they might like to plant their own plants and things and make their garden a bit nicer. And when someone moves in as well, you can't really enforce a landscape condition anymore because they might want to change some plants and things. So when we try and avoid conditions as much as possible where they don't really serve a purpose, we could ask them to provide some vegetation along the boundaries, but it won't actually. The person could buy it and not like them there, or might like different plants, and so. I also anticipated the question about soundproofing to number one. I did consult prior to this meeting our environmental protection team. They would not ordinarily consider that level of detail for this type of application because of the party wall. So often when you're converting into flats, it was originally designed as a dwelling, so you do need internal. So between the first floor and the ground floor, you need extra sound insulation, but the party wall already provides an enhanced sound insulation by the fact that it is a party wall. PVs, I mean, they could propose it, but there's no policy requirement to do it, and a condition wouldn't meet the relevant test because there's no policy requirements to do it. And in terms of construction timing, yes, we could add a condition by that, but that's already governed by national noise and antisocial legislation anyway, so they would need to comply with that requirement.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Green? Nope. Okay, thank you. Councillor... Sorry, I have... yes, I'll put you on the list. Okay, thank you. Councillor Yoganathan, did you have some questions for the officer?
I think most of the questions been asked by my two ward councillors. What I am coming down to, your Joy line, yes. Beautiful. Because if he is subject to allow this one to go through, yeah, as the two things, with all the things what we were talking about it, we were thinking, how do we do it? I think one of the serious one is come back because of the HMO and the fear. And one of them was very clear. The second one is in terms of the equal accessibility, because when you are telling it's only for the family, so whoever it is, 3-bed families are short, are they looking at it to make sure they are going to treat everybody inclusive? In that basis, what I am coming back to is, okay, you are saying they are splitting the rear garden into two. And then considering there are people backing onto Westfield Road, okay, it is about 20 or 30 meters away from it. Why can't we go for soft landing landscape to encourage the whole thing? And then, it's a fairly bigger area. So then people can do whatever they like. I don't know how long they're going to be when they're coming in. And equally, if one of the family come back, like me, I'm 78, with a disability problem at this moment because I had my hip operation. And I do feel for some of those people, there is only allowance for 2 cars. Why can't you do disability car 1 in the front? So that means one of the family is not going to be pushed out, yeah? I'm asking in all conditions. And in terms of the refuse collection, is it reachable by the families or whoever to the road? But I don't want it on the pavement We have got enough problem that is happening in the neighbouring roads. So that has to be sorted as well. I think one of the councillors was asking. One of the things I am saying to you is what sort of condition we can put which is acceptable in terms of everything, the overlooking, and then try to bring the whole thing in such a way we can. I understand it was agreed over a 3-year or 4-year terms, but the question is how are we going to do it? I think you can see people are upset about how many people are coming. It is a conservation area, you know, things, and then they think that is it going to happen everywhere? That is a problem because that they are river roads, and then they are not far away from the St. Andrew's Care as well. So all these conditions, what we are talking about, is the one I am looking for. Thank you.
Okay, on the first point around disability access, now I sort of outlined previously, there's no policy requirement for this type of application to provide that. There are building regulations, M42 and M43. So one of them requires adaptable dwellings. So they might not be designed at the current point for wheelchair accessibility, but they could be adapted. And if I look at the ground floor flat example, you could slightly widen the entrance. You could remove this particular wall here slightly. And then you could open up and you could adapt that dwelling in the future if it was necessary for wheelchair accessibility. It's always going to be difficult for the upper floor flat to be able to do that because they have to negotiate stairs. There are options of chair lifts and things like that. But again, the ground floor flat would not need to go down the side of the property to access the rear garden. They could access it directly from the rear of their dwelling. And in terms of refuse collection, there's sort of a plan here showing again how that would work. Sorry, so they would be sort of stored in these particular timber like containers, and they would open outwards. So you would open it out, and then you pull the bin out, and then you would add to the top. Effectively, I can't really comment on how a wheelchair user would use such an arrangement because I would not know what that's particularly like. But again, there's basic policy requirements here, and it meets these in terms of refuse storage and disability access.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Did you have a supplementary? Yes.
One more question, because there is a facilities for 2-car parking. The rest of them are not buying, they are not allowed to buy parking permits as per our legal things. That's a good news. What I am also suggesting is it's possible. One of them turned out to be a disabled parking. If they couldn't find the disabled parking, so any other person can take over the place. If a disabled person comes, you can't simply say, even though, how do I say, they can't buy the parking space, where would they park the car? That's what I'm asking.
So in terms of restriction of parking permits, that does not apply to people with blue badges. They may be able to get one painted on the street or something like that, if in the event that one was necessary.
Okay.
Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Joel. Councillor Shopper.
Thank you, Chair. I think my question is probably going to sound quite technical, so I've written it down to make sure that I have it right. So bear with me. So I'm going to read it out because it could be a technical question. It's about cumulative impact. So my question is looking at the 2 proposed first floor extensions, and it looks from the plans like there are 2 different proposed extensions to the existing approved extensions. So the way it's technical is I'm going to speak like this. So I find this application odd in the way it has been presented, as the previous applications which were granted were in the context of one family home. And I'm going to go on just to add that we're asked tonight to consider as a cumulative impact of the proposed extensions, and how do we look at this application properly now if the property's previous applications have already been approved. So my question is, as the previous applications were approved for a house, Does this render the previous granted applications invalid in the sense that presumably they were approved because they were enhancing the existing property, which was a house? So how, in this context, has this application come to us tonight in this way? Because I do find that very odd. I haven't come across that in 8 years. So it does concern me somewhat. I'm not talking about the design, about 2 properties, just the technical aspect of it coming tonight in its current format. I would have wondered why it had come like that. And my second question is, how does it render it valid that it was done, that the previous granted applications were for a house with the existing elevations and extensions? So it's come as a package, but it's a very odd way of presenting it. So in your professional opinion, I wondered if you could just try and explain that to me tonight. Thank you. Sorry if that's a little bit technically sounding, but I needed to get it right because it's rather confusing in its current format.
Yeah.
So I'll wait for comments later, but they're my 2 sort of related questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I understand what you're sort of alluding to. So I can't
listen very carefully to you. So.
I can't speak to the motivations of an applicant or developer as to why they do what they do. The applications have come in we have to accept an application and assess it as it comes to us. We can't think, oh, this might be a flat in the future. We have to assess it as a house. And it's still a house at the moment. So they could implement their extensions because it's a house. So in terms of looking at the cumulative impact, as I sort of talked about, the material considerations are things like local character and design, and then we're also looking at residential amenity. Now, the extensions in themselves have been approved individually. What we're trying to do as part of this application is to regularise all those 3 together, noting, and that's why I've sort of been open and honest with you, they technically couldn't implement all these 3 permissions together, but it's a very technical matter. And even if they did implement all 3 permissions together, the risk that we would take enforcement action on that is probably very limited. So the fact that I just tried to get across to you that these 3 permissions, yes, they've come in like that, and that's why I tried to spell it out in the report. They've come in as individual applications, but technically they can't be implemented together. But that's why, as part of the report, I've done a cumulative assessment on what all these 3 extensions together would be like in terms of local character design and residential amenity.
Thank you so much for that. So I guess my question to me is, why would you not have granted then the 3 separate previous, the 4 iterations of this entire application as one house? So in other words, you'd already granted the application based on it being one property. So my question is therefore, why would you not have treated this application as a completely separate application because you've already approved it for the house rather than 2 properties? Therefore, it would be a brand new application with no bearing on the previous granted applications if it was for 2 properties and not 1 property. Thank you.
So it is a brand new application, but we do have to give a material consideration to what we have approved before. And that's, those permissions are relevant in the context of the current proposal because we have previously, as a council, considered them to be acceptable.
Sorry, I just wanted one point of clarity. If it's acceptable, though, can you explain why they're wouldn't be acceptable tonight as individual? Therefore, you've already granted the application for a house. This is obviously a brand new application, but then why have that as a material consideration if you couldn't then implement them individually as they are now? Thanks.
That's why we're looking at it as a cumulative impact. So we are assessing these 3 things together as one.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Hurlinger.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to dive in on the exchange you had with Councillor Green about the soft landscaping. I understand sort of about imposing conditions have to meet a certain threshold. Could we put an informative on about soft landscaping?
I mean, you could, but it depends what you want it to say. So I don't think that there's adequate space in the front garden to provide any additional landscaping. And then I think that, you know, the landscaping into the rear has been done as simple as possible to allow for the future owner or renter of that flat to be able to do as they wish. They might like to plant some vegetables, but if there's a condition restricting that they had to keep a certain species of tree there, then that might be a bit unreasonable on that. So the way that the two gardens have been designed is, you know, basically a grassed area, and then people can do as they wish. We would typically ask for a landscape plan as part of a much larger development than something smaller like this.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yes, of course. Go ahead, Councillor Holt.
So I think I mentioned it in my question, but we focused on the bins. But what part of my point was about the front, what we've been talking about, the front surface. And I would would like to know with suds, that it is actually a good surface that's there. I don't know, I know that it's paved at the moment, but does it actually, and can we make sure that it's, actually suds compliant?
So the permitted development regulations around front gardens are that no more than 5 square metres should be solid effectively. A paved garden meets that requirement. So but by it being paved, it's permeable.
My understanding was that it had to be, you either had to have a drain in front or you use permeable materials as the paving, only because I had to do it myself. So I've had to do it in my own front garden, and I had to
the gaps between the individual pavers make it permeable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Do you councillors have any further questions for the officer? No, I think we've asked quite a lot of questions, quite a lot of very intelligent and useful questions. So I'll now move on to members' comments. Anybody who wishes to make a comment on this, please raise a hand. Councillor Green.
Thank you. I may as well go first because I think I'm probably going to say what a lot of people on the committee are thinking. I don't see a reason to refuse this application. I don't think that it is overbearing. There is a lot of very large houses in the area, and it is, whilst it would probably be the largest, it is not dramatically different from several others that have loft extensions and rear extensions. I accept not rear extension, first floor extension and loft extension in one go, but I don't think it is dramatically different by adding all of those elements in. I think there will be a small amount of harm, as the resident mentioned to number 5, from their first floor window they will see the 6-metre extension, the ground floor extension at the 45-degree angle. And I think from number 1 as well, we know that they will look in on that ground floor extension at 6 metres. However, we have to be mindful that that 6 metres could be put on starting tomorrow, and there would be nothing we could do about that 6 metres. So it is about I don't think the first floor, the ground floor and the loft conversion cumulatively affects the daylight and sunlight accessibility of the residents at number 1 and number 5. I'm very pleased we've raised the issue of the HMO, and that we can, and I would move an amendment, Chair, that we add that condition that the officer suggests from C3 to C4, so that if it was ever to become an HMO, it would have to come back for planning permission, which is the strongest we can do at this committee. I would like to see the toilet upstairs obscured. I'd like to add that as a condition, the loft toilet. I don't think anybody's going to object one way or another to that. It's a shame about not being able to put PVs on, and I think that's something that we have our policy lead for our new local plan. It would be good to get PVs even on small developments like this because we need to move towards that. But I recognise that if it's not a policy requirement, we can't do it. I don't think there's a lot else to say. I've tried to improve it, but been told that things aren't necessary or can't be done. And I know the residents won't be happy, but I think there is a move. It is a 2-3 bedroom flats are still classed as family dwellings, whether people feel they should be or not, they are, and therefore under policy it is compliant, losing one family dwelling to get 2 family dwellings is what it is on paper, and I think that that therefore is policy compliant. So I shall, with the addition of the HMOs and the obscure glazing, be voting to permit this.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Green. You proposed some conditions. We'll go through and hear from the rest of the members to see if there's any further conditions to add to this, and then we'll take those as any further conditions as a single amendment, if that's okay with you. Right, Councillor Sharper.
I think Councillor Green more or less said all of my points. It was just to say that I too really want to stress that cumulative impact here, then we need to try and as much as we can to have as strict conditions as we can. And I think, Liz, you've covered them all off with the C3 and C4. I think, I would struggle, I would find it quite difficult to find to refuse on the grounds of any concrete grounds in terms of density, because we're struggling for 3-bedroom flats all the time, and the fact that we have 2 3-bedroom properties, these don't come around very often, or at least I don't see that many 3-beds. So I would find it quite difficult under one of the policies for trying to encourage, more than 2-bed properties to come on the market. And I do think that, yes, I take on board the points that were made about the type of road that it's going to be in, but equally, we are keen to try and get as many 3-bed family properties to actually be built. And I think, so for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, I don't necessarily think that the first floor extension looks incongruous, I think the word is, but I as I say, I absolutely echo my colleagues' views and other colleagues tonight about to try and tighten up the conditions so this does not get any further extensions or additions to this build. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor White.
Thank you very much. I don't like it. I really, really don't like it, and I'm incredibly uncomfortable by this whole application. I do actually think it's incongruous, that first floor, but unfortunately incongruous is not a reason for not approving. I think in my entire time as a councillor, I have been incredibly, I don't know, it's frustrated, but it is the way it is. Planning is so regulated. We have so little power, so little influence on what actually we can do. If we say we really don't like it, we just don't think it works, it comes back to appeal. And we've just had one on Brighton Road that has come back, and it cost the council about £200,000 to go through that appeal process, and we lost. I just don't think there is enough to turn it down, that it won't come back and be found against us, at which point we have no powers to put in any conditions. So this HMO having to come back for planning won't be there if we don't approve it tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Yoganathan.
Thank you very much indeed. I think Liz started it, and my second councillor has obviously come back and said what we can do, what we can't do, why when it goes unchallenged, and we end up in paying the money. And as you and Anita said it, when you have this two bedroom flats coming through, that is normally for 3 things is very rare. But I do go along with the stronger conditions as Liz suggested, and the soft landscaping, even on the back. Don't leave it to the people to do it. Some of the people come there, they are busy in life. So we need to make sure that person is doing that, not only the front, but the back. And in terms of the refuse things, Alison said it, yes, I want something done. And other things are perfectly okay. And the HMO is another serious one. Because what we don't want is, it's been repeated and then they come along and they can do whatever they like in terms of HMO, and then instead of two flats of 3-bedroom, suddenly turned out to be 12 HMO. So we need that one also strongly put it on. And if they can do the building effectively, and I feel sorry for the number 5 and 1, because you said in terms of the meterage, the distance is sufficient or is acceptable distance. You see, I can understand that. All I am saying to you is, it is come as a cumulative one. It created a more problem for us. And today we are trying to maintain that one with serious conditions so that we can effectively do whatever necessary as a group collectively. That's all I can say to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any further comments? Yes, Councillor Hurlinger.
Yes, I don't know whether Councillor Green sort of thought of this, but removal of permitted development rights for the 2 new flats, is that something you had in mind?
I'd have thought that this property has used all of its permitted developments and some more, so I wouldn't have thought it was necessary, but yeah, the officer will be able to tell us better than me.
Can you comment on that, Joel?
Yeah. If members want to proceed with a recommendation for that condition, we would effectively restrict the relevant part of the GPDO, the General Permitted Development Order, from applying to this particular site. So you don't need to restrict certain things like extensions, because if it's flats, you don't get any permitted development rights for extensions. So the wording of the condition, which I could refer back to the chair if the members decide that's appropriate, would be effectively removing the permitted development rights. I think it's Class L of the GPD, Schedule 2, Part 3, Class L. I'll have to look it up. And that's what that would be referenced in the wording of the condition if members thought that was necessary.
Is that for the HMO bit?
For HMOs, yes.
Right.
Okay, so right. Okay, so at this stage, I have 3 conditions. One is the adding the C3 to C, restriction on the C3 to C4 conversion, so such that if they wish to turn it into an HMO, it would have to come back to planning control. Obscuring to the window, the bathroom window in the on the first floor. Sorry? Oh, sorry, the loft, beg your pardon, yes. And the permitted development restriction, as same as the first one. Okay, fine. So we have the 2 conditions. Are there, if there's no further conditions, yes, Councillor Yoganathan.
I thought that I'm also putting the soft landscaping on the back garden, so that will protect things. Don't allow you see, but the planning officer was saying that the people who wasn't live there, they will do their things. But I want the soft landscaping so that is maintained. You know, we couldn't do anything in the front. I rather that goes in so that the landlord, whoever it is, doing that appropriate landscaping to make sure that acceptable bush or trees goes into it, not blocking all
I would just say you're kind of assuming it's going to be rented by saying landlord. It might be sold, and maybe I could get Councillor Green or Joel to comment.
So my comment was just going to be, I appreciate what the officer said. So if someone buys this flat and they want to put in some bushes and plants and things, great. If they just want it grass, fine. They should be able to, in the same ways in our own gardens, we choose which bits to put in, depending upon the age of our children, for example, or whatever else it is. But what we wouldn't want to see there is hard landscaping.
Yeah.
So fake grass, non-permeable, hard landscaping. Is there something that leaves flexibility for any future resident, but at the same time says, actually, you're not just hard landscaping it because of lack of drainage? And it's a question to you. I don't know if that's possible. So it's sort of soft landscaping, but not specific.
I think what might be being requested is a condition requesting details of hard and soft landscaping. It's difficult because we need to think about the enforceability of these conditions. So if someone does it in 5 years' time and we don't know about it, how are we going to know about it effectively?
Next door tell us.
Sure.
But, make a note. But also, if he starts off on the right foot, I think that's a positive. So there's going to be a lot of building works on this site if this goes ahead. And it's likely to end up with no grass there or anything else in the back garden whilst the construction is happening. At least if we have a soft landscaping plan that the developer has to put in before occupation of the premises, we've started with something. Now, yes, if somebody then changes that 5 years down the line, the chances are we won't know about it, but at least they've started with something, because otherwise nothing may go in there ever. Is it better than nothing?
Okay,
What I might just say to that is the plan that you effectively have in front of you would be an approved plan, which is putting paving and grass.
Would we check it before? Sorry, so the residents can. Yeah. Would we check that though? So when, if it's a prior to occupation condition, they have to sign off to say we've now done this before it can be occupied. If it's just on the plan, they don't have to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to interject here for a second. Perhaps we need a little bit of a conversation here between the two of you. And it coincides with an urgent request for a 5-minute comfort break. So I've adjourned the meeting for 5 minutes and we'll come back and carry on this conversation. Thank you very much.
So I can already write a condition for you.
gee.
So thank you very much. We're back now. So, okay. So if we can stop the side conversations. Okay. Right. Oh, okay. Oh, are we still missing a councillor? Sorry, I thought we were back together now. Okay. Okay. Well, don't know where he's gone. Okay. Right. Okay. So we'll go ahead and proceed. You want? Okay. Apparently, if we start without him, he can't come back into the meeting.
And it's a planning application. If he's not in the room, you can't say anything.
So we'll wait. Sorry, I thought we had everybody back.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We've lost him. We've lost him.
Had enough gone home.
No, he's left his phone. I don't think so. He's disappeared. I keep doing that. Completely disappeared. And then we can call in a detective to work out where he's gone. He was halfway through the meeting,
I'm watching Down Cemetery Road at the moment.
Oh, what's that?
It's got Emma Thompson in it. It's on Apple. It's very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have that.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you get it and then you sign up for a month and you have to...
Oh, I have quite a lot of different ones. I'm watching Beyond Paradise, that's spin from Death in Paradise.
Is that the one you said in Australia?
No, that's... Oh, yes. No, it's not that one. It's Return to... No.
That's Return to Paradise.
Yeah, that's Return. Beyond Paradise is the Chris Marshall one with... it's set in Devon.
All right.
But it's written by Robert Thorogood, who wrote Death in Paradise.
Right.
And it's nice, easy watching along the mystery type stuff.
Yeah, well, if you...
which is only on iPlayer as well. So.
Well, if you're interested, the Down Cemetery Road one's really good. So,
Okay,
yeah.
but it's only on Apple.
It's only on Apple.
Is that whodunit?
It's a whodunit, yeah. Well, it's a bit of a, there's some chasing and there's, people on the run and it's a one is it? No, it's not whodunit. It's just like it's an investigator. And,
Okay, like a procedural.
Yeah.
Everybody, we'll now resume. So we were just talking about soft landscaping.
So the officer has confirmed that if we were to put in, excuse me, a condition that says prior to occupation, they must provide evidence of the soft and hard landscaping, that would mean that at least before anybody moved in, we knew it had grass put down. Whereas without that condition, it could still be builder's rubble in the back. I mean, that's being facetious, but you get the idea. It wouldn't necessarily, at least that means that it would start off that way, although we would struggle, but the officer has confirmed that that would be an acceptable condition.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Councillor. Appreciate your planning experience in this matter. Thank you, Joel. So we have three conditions, the HMO condition, the obscured glazing, and the landscaping condition. So that's an amendment, so we have to have a, I believe we have to have a second for that. So you've moved it, Councillor Yoganathan has seconded it. Sorry, if members wish to vote on each of these separately, could you indicate? Okay, Councillor Holt, okay. So we'll take each one of these individually. So starting with the HMO condition, or is everybody clear on the meaning of that? Okay, all in favor? Okay, I believe that's unanimous. Okay. Thank you. The condition on obscured glazing. Does everybody understand the meaning of that? Okay. Can I have a show of hands in favor? I believe that is unanimous. Okay, thank you. And the final one is the detail on the landscaping condition. Does everybody understand the meaning of that? No clarification needed. Okay, can I have a show of hands of those who are in favor of that condition? Right, okay. Those opposed? Okay. And any abstentions? No. Okay, fine. Okay, so those three conditions are approved, so that becomes part of this of our motion. So are we ready to go to a vote on the main motion? Okay. So can I take it as unanimous, or does the committee wish to vote? We should vote anyways. Okay, sorry, I have it in my notes here. Okay, so can I have a show of hands of those who are in favor of approving the application? Okay. It's unanimous. Okay. Right, okay. So that is approved, subject to conditions and informatives are set out in the report to the committee and the conditions that we've just agreed, and authorities delegated to the Director of Planning and Regeneration to finalise the conditions in consultation with the chair of this committee. So thank you. Thank you very much to people who came tonight, members of the audience and objectors. And we'll now move on to the next item.
No, thank you.
Okay, declarations of interest.
No, you
Right. Okay. So we're now doing plans for highway maintenance. Right. So we now move on to the Surbiton Neighbourhood Community Plan. Annual review, and we have this is item 8 on the neighbourhood on the agenda. Members of the committee and meeting participants can refer to Appendix D of the agenda pack. So may I invite?
Excuse me, Chair. Sorry. Should we recall our missing?
Oh right. Okay. So we're yes. Very good point.
Yeah, they are aware. No problem.
Yes, thank you. Welcome back. Right. So we're now talking about the Surbiton Neighbourhood Community Plan, and I'd like to invite James Skeech, our neighbourhood manager, to give a brief introduction to the report. This will be followed by public comments and then debate by members of the committee. So, James.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as you've summarised, the committee is being asked to undertake a 12-month review of the Surbiton Neighbourhood Community Plan, which it adopted last January. I'll just briefly talk to the context in the report. So as set out in the report, back in 2018, the Council gave the committee and all neighbourhood committees permission to adopt a neighbourhood community plan to serve as a framework for its decision-making relating to the community grants programme. The committee adopted its first plan in 2021, and it subsequently adopted the current plan last year in January 2025, and a copy of that is appended to the report as Annex 1. Also, you can see in Annex 2 how the Community Grants Programme supported the first iteration of that neighbourhood community plan. The Community Grants Programme being made up of those borough-wide grants, neighbourhood community grants, council award funding, and neighbourhood community infrastructure levy allocations. And then in Table 1 of the main body report, you can see how you try to meet the outcomes in the latest version of the report of the plan in Table 1. This is the opportunity to review it. It's been 12 months. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so thank you very much. So we have one member of the public registered to comment on this item. So John Davidson, if you'd like to come forward again. Yeah, thank you for staying.
It's all right. Learned a lot about planning tonight. Thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, I saw the plan and I had a chance to have a look through it. I think, I suppose I've got one kind of overriding comment to make or question to ask, and is it really a plan? I think it feels and reads more like a kind of funding framework, which I think is what you've alluded to, James. You know, and if that's the case, then it's really just saying what bids you might expect to get to support the framework or to support the strategic intents, really, because you're really talking about making the borough greener, fairer, safer together. And if you support bids that support that intent, you might as well just reduce the plan to one sentence, which is, we'll accept bids that support anything which makes the borough greener, fairer, safer together. Because if you boil it down, that's pretty much all it's saying, actually. And all the details in it are just the details which have got kind of details around how you expect to make it greener, fairer, safer together, or how you expect the bids that you get to make it greener, fairer, safer together. But it's just a detail underneath those four words. So I think for me, what it could benefit from might be more about what the committee is expecting to do, and make it a bit more proactive in terms of things that the Service and Neighbourhood Committee might come up with in terms of making the borough greener and fairer and safer, rather than just being kind of reactive and getting bids in that you know, might achieve some of those things. So I think that's one thing. You know, could you add to the plan something around what this committee is expecting to deliver in the next 12 months in order to support those things? And I think another thing might be to, you know, if you are aspiring to make the borough greener and safer, what's the starting point for that? What's the gap analysis? What are you aspiring to achieve in terms of where it is now, in terms of greenness or safeness or fairness? And what are the kinds of things you might do to then improve on those things, and how are you going to measure it? Because how much greener or safer or you know, togetherness have you achieved in the last 12 months? We don't know unless it's measured. And then some kind of timeline, I suppose, in terms of updating residents and the borough about the achievements that you have made. So if you are progressing towards making it better, could you not include something around a quarterly update about how it's improving over time? So those are some of the kind of themes I'd just like to, you know, present to the committee.
Okay, well, thank you very much, John, for your comments. So if you'd like to return to your seat, we'll take those into consideration as we have our discussion here. So, do any members wish to speak? Councillor Shopper, I know you may either ask a question to the officer or make a comment.
Bit of
Or a bit of both, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, John. We had a chat before the meeting, so I was really grateful for that. And as I said before, I just want to reiterate that I'd be very happy to work with you in the coming months with some of the suggestions and ideas that you've put forward. I think, James, it's always a challenge, isn't it, to find a formula that works, because we've had different forms of the plan over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think taking on board some of the points that were mentioned by John actually just now, I think it might be good to sort of factor in some of the revisions and the tweaks that we're doing to the grants programme overall. I thought maybe that might be a good opportunity just to say that we're looking at how we can enhance the grants programme. And I think looking at some of the ways we measure success has come up in some of the discussions, if that's probably a fair summary, that we're looking at when local organisations and charities and CICs come to us with their suggestions for what they'd like us to look at for different grants that come through bids, is the word I was looking for. I think it's one of the things, I think, hasn't it, that we've looked at in part of the revised, looking at how we can enhance the grants programme, is how do we as a committee understand better how they've used the money in effect, and how that's what a measure of success for those organisations have been, and what we can learn from that and what we understand from that. And I think that's probably, would you say, part of the work that's underway now that you're involved with, I think. Is that a fair point to make? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I think that's a fair summary, Councillor. Thank you. It's always difficult to take these sort of policy documents in isolation. And the most practical use this document is being shared with grants applicants. So if someone makes an inquiry of the council, what can I apply to Surbiton for? This is what this practical document is for, and it is much more of a framework document, as John has suggested, rather than sort of a schedule of works. There's no set budget for a schedule of works or for programme deliverables, and we only have the community grants programme due to be the response to this document. But you're right, the community grants programme is now 7 years old. It will be going to its 8th year next year, so it's a good opportunity to take stock and review and see that we're getting all the outcomes we want from the community plan. One last thing I would say about the General Council plan vision, as it's encapsulated here, is yes, of course, that is tracked. These are our strategic visions. So there are strategic documents that track all these, to which this contributes as part of those tracking motions.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you, James. I think it was just a final point, John, was that, as you know, sort of you have resident-facing documents. You have those documents like this one that are in the public domain. And then as councillors, we do have sort of those more internal document discussions that we probably perhaps can't always share so widely as we would like, not because we don't want to, but because they're in flow. With internal discussions with the officers about what works, what doesn't work, ideas that come forward. And we have to also be mindful that we sometimes work sort of 18 months in advance because of the way the funding works and the budget system works. We get potential ideas that we're asked to bring forward. So in that sort of proactive stance that you were talking about, we do that. But I think it's just a way of messaging that perhaps to the residents and public. But this is that sort of, as James alluded to, it's always a challenge to work out what type of document you can use that's simple and easy to read and grasp and understand, that we share with residents who want to come to us with bids, with organisations. But there is that internal facing work that we do that perhaps we can't always so easily articulate and share with the wider public. But it was just to reassure you actually that, and I was listening, that an awful lot of work and an awful lot of thinking goes into what we do in the future and how we want to shape our vision and how we drive things forward. And that often involves money and funding. And that's why where a lot of that goes on, probably unseen behind the scenes. So I just wanted to sort of mention that we do an awful lot of work in that sense, working with officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other comments? I'll now move from the... sorry. Yes, Councillor Manders.
Yes, I think it's just in response. I mean, I spent, I think, about 18 and a half years as a local councillor in two different periods. And I mean, a local authority provides a very wide range of local services, most of which have no connection with each other. So there's not much really connection what we were doing about decisions about the roads or about this planning application tonight, and social services, which social services and children's services are, I think, over 70% of our budget. It's the iceberg, and people only see the tip in things like roads, dustbins, collections, and things like that. So from time to time, this organisation produces some kind of document which it hopes unifies all these disparate services into one kind of whole, and that's effectively what you're seeing really today. But I would like you to look further, really, at all the practical things that this organisation does, and forgive us for a highfalutin and abstract document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments? I will now move from the chair the recommendations at the front of the report on page D1. So we're asked to resolve that the continued use of the current Surbiton Neighbourhood Community Plan as set out in Annex 1 of the report be approved, and authority be delegated to the neighbourhood manager in consultation with the chair of the committee to amend the plan before publication in accordance with comments of the committee. So do I have a seconder? Councillor Schopper, thank you. Are there any further comments before we go to a vote? No? Okay. Can I take that as unanimous, or would we agree? Okay. That is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, James. And we will now move on to the highways item. Yeah, bear with me a second. Jumping all over the place. Is this one here? Right, okay. So I'm supposed to say members of the committee and participants may refer to Appendix B of the agenda pack. And so I'd invite George Vickers, who's our principal engineer, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking, as there was a typo spotted by Councillor Hurlinger when we put the report forward, looking at Annex 4, page B11 of the agenda pack, item 6 under U roads, Alexander Drive should read Alexandra Drive. And also in Annex 1 on page B7, item 18, phase 2 of the maintenance of Grand Avenue from Greenfield Avenue to Elmbridge Avenue will be completed in Q4. It was complicated as there was 2 phases of that scheme, and just when the report was put together, it was put together quite... we knew it was getting done, but we didn't make that explicitly clear in the report, so that just needed to be corrected. Thank you. Looking at the report, the recommendation is to ask the committee to comment on the proposals for the 26-27 carriageway and footway maintenance programme relevant to the neighbourhood as set out in Annex 2, and also to make comment on the proposal set out in Annex 4 of the report, which governs what we would like to consider as possible roads to put forward with Department for Transport funding, which I'll elaborate on as I present the report, basically. The key points, Annex 1 and Annex 3 details the, footways and carriageway schemes have been completed in the last 12 months and what's still to be completed in the 4th quarter, and also details the street lighting schemes that have been completed in the last 12 months. Key point B, Annex 2 presents what we would like to consider for 26-27 and will be taken forward to place on 5th of February. And key point C details the Department for Transport funding, which we had just over £500,000 worth of this year. The government, through its recent budget in November, has put together a 4-year strategy, which we've got details of during mid-December, basically, of a baseline figure that the council is going to get over the next 4 years, which is just under 3.8 million, with a further 2.2 million of incentive funding, subject to constraints that the department's going to put forward. There was constraints last year, basically, which we got all of the incentive funding. We're not explicitly aware of what those conditions will be for the 4 years of funding that we've potentially got coming up. As part of this report, we were asked to include what would planned maintenance like if we were to get that funding, and basically Annex 4 details. I'll be frank, mine and my senior plan maintenance officer, Gert Van Wicks, wish list if we were to get everything. Basically, all of the incentive funding and everything went to planned. We know that won't happen because there's demands from other sections. As the funding's to cover all kinds of highway infrastructure, you can put it to basically just structures, street lighting, reactive maintenance or planned maintenance. But Annex 4 details what we would do if it was given to planned maintenance, basically. So there is that consideration of it. And as I always say, and it's detailed in key point D, the council's highway network is its most expensive asset, basically. And that's why we are committed to basically try and keep that in as good a state as we can with the funding that we get to do so. I'm happy to go straight onto the roads that we're putting forward for this committee area, as I've got a little bit of detail about each of them. Beresford Avenue is an interesting one, as it was split into 2 phases, basically, and we're doing the 25-26 half of it this week. Yeah, with the 26-27 half of it that we've actually put forward in this report, we think we may actually be able to get that done in the 4th quarter of this financial year as it is, due to the savings that we've made on a few other schemes and because the DFT funding that we're taking forward like over the year, as some of the roads that we did have down got picked up as part of that funding. So there's basically been, due to a scheme that got dropped in another area because of a utility works that were still waiting to be carried out, there's basically been about £500,000 added to the programme this year. So some of the roads that we did put forward have already got picked up. So we think we're going to potentially be able to get Beresford Avenue, which is listed in the report on line 20 of Annex 2, I think it is, sorry. We think we'll be able to get that done in March of this year, potentially. You know, obviously, if we can get that done, we will then look at putting another road in off the list, as I've got a ridiculously long list with the roads we survey, and there's always need in an area. And like one of the things I think possibly, we'd obviously want to finalise that before the place committee, but one of the things that would make sense to me is if you look at in Annex 4 on the unclassified roads, there's 3 sections of Rayburn Avenue that have been identified, and I don't have the costs of those to hand, but if there is a gap, to me it would make sense to include potentially one of the sections of Rayburn Avenue, potentially, as I think that'd be a sensible way forward. Beresford Avenue itself, though, on the surveys we carry out annually, section was scored on the worst 3% on survey last year, which was out of over 900 roads. The average condition of the road as itself wasn't great, was at worst 6%. You've got joints opening up, and the surface layer is just generally tired. It's basically end-of-life status, largely. Burney Avenue was the next road we're putting forward. Whole road we're looking at. The road in itself scored in the worst 15%. You've got the 55 bus on it, and you've got a route to university there, so it gets more than its fair share of traffic. We think, basically, on that basis, that it was worth putting forward. Fuller's Way North didn't actually score that badly in terms of condition, but it's just due to the level of traffic that it takes that we thought, as you're taking a high volume of traffic off the A3, plus some of the levels of failure that we're starting to see in it, as you're getting failed reinstatements, basically, where potholes have been picked up over time. They last for a while before you're actually looking at the condition of like, okay, that's come up again, do you need to resurface that? As you can't just patch a pothole repeatedly. There comes a point where it's just a case of you have to resurface the road. Now, we think that's where we are with Fuller's Way North to a certain extent, especially given the level of traffic that it takes. And yeah, you're also seeing aggregate loss. Aggregate is basically the stone that you get within the road when you lay it. It's just basically what bonds around it. Once the aggregate starts picking out, it's starting to see concerns that you don't want to see from a road, basically. The fourth road that we're putting forward for Surbiton is Grove Road, and I've got some details on it. Section basically worse 11%. Whole road is in itself wasn't that great. Worse 17% on the roads that were surveyed during 2025. The subsidence was picked up in this road when my officers visually surveyed it as well as using Brysala, which is the tool we use to give us a score so we can put percentages on things. Subsidence was noted in points of the carriageway and several, again, severely failed patches where reactive maintenance had been down there over time. And whilst a pothole repair will last a short time, over time it will fail, basically. And that's the situation that you've got with Grove Road. Those are the roads we're looking to put forward. In terms of the overall budget, that breaks down at about 26% of what's being spent on carriageways this year from what we put forward with this report. That's due to the fact that Burney Avenue is quite an expensive element of that due to the size of the work that we're doing, basically. There is no footways put forward in this ward, in this committee area this year. That's where I am with the report. Happy to take questions if you've got any. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We don't have any public questions, so Councillor Green.
Yeah, it's just on Burney Avenue. I think you said Whole Road, but on the report it says Minnedale to Hill Crescent, which is 2/3 of it.
Yeah, you're right. I'm happy to correct that.
That's fine. Just wanted to be sure which one was right.
Absolutely fine. Yeah, no,
Okay.
you are right. My note had Whole Road, and we're only doing a section. You're correct.
Right,
Thank you.
okay. I wonder whether this is partly due and whether there's some comeback on it. The university started putting double-deckers down the road about 5 years ago, something like that. And the roads, we complained at the time and said this road is not suitable for double-deckers. It is the university bus. And the bus has always gone down it, but it wasn't suitable for double-deckers because of the weights. So I'm wondering whether there is any comeback that says, actually, you've knackered our road, mate. I'm sure there's more technical ways of putting it, but essentially that. Did you get that one, Jane? She's not paying attention. You did.
I think that's a technical term.
Yeah, I'll piss off the university now, but never mind. But essentially, I'm wondering whether it is because of the double-deckers going down, frankly, a road that was not designed for that weight of traffic, that weight of vehicle, that has caused this problem.
Yeah, very fair point. It's one of the things we are seeing across the borough to a certain extent, especially with like the rise in electric buses to a certain extent, because the amount of batteries in them does increase the weight of the bus substantially, and you're now starting to see damage turn up on certain bus routes, and you're starting to see patterns that would suggest that that is an issue. It's difficult to prove, but I think there is scope with that, and that's something that we are discussing with London Buses and with TfL as a result of that, because suddenly it's like, there's a correlation basically with it, so I think there is a scope for that. I don't know particularly in the case with the university, but I think that is something that's worth looking into 100%.
Yeah, so if we could follow up on that, Chair, because actually they went from single-decker diesel, I assume diesel buses, to double-decker electric buses, and they run at, I wish I could remember, 4 an hour? Something like that. It's a really frequent service down that road, which is great. And you know, it is a necessary service for the students to Clay Hill Halls of Residence. But we didn't think the bus was the right type of bus. So I don't know how we follow that up, Chair, because I think the university are partly liable for that road starting to fail, because the rest of the traffic on it is minor. I mean, it really is.
I'll send them a bill. Yeah, I'll send him an invoice.
You can hand out emails that said at the time, this is not a suitable road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
There is scope for that discussion 100% because you're starting to see it's like for some of the K service buses, as some of them are basically electric, and you're starting to see deterioration in some of the side roads and smaller roads that they use. The particular big issue you've got with double deckers is because you're increasing the weight of them by about 50%, based on what I understand when they're electric, because the amount of the amount of batteries on them that weigh quite a bit. You've also got the issue of the amount of heat that's expelled by them to a certain extent, which has made older wearing courses more prone to deformation to a certain extent, particularly in warmer summer weather. So you have seen it. We've not seen it so much in this borough where there's not been so many electric services, but I know some other parts of London there has been quite bad problems with electric buses. So we're obviously very aware of that, especially because the amount of electric services in the buses, are increasing across London and particularly within this borough. So yeah, it's something we are aware of, definitely. Thank you.
So, Chair, my question to you is how do we take that forward to make sure that it is looked at? Because, it just should be. And whether the university agree with us or not would be a whole different matter. But it's got to be a technical thing. But I think it should come from councillors as well. I don't know whether that's a comment that goes into the report for Place Committee. There'll be councillors here who sit on Place who could also raise it. I don't. Or whether we let the officers deal with it or you deal with it as chair. I don't know. Just some way.
As I would think, the purpose of this item is to make recommendations to Place. That's the only thing that we're doing here. Yeah. We're doing nothing to vote on. I would say that we take that forward as a recommendation to Place, and then the portfolio holder for highways can pick that up and go forward from there. Does that sound okay?
That sounds fine. So you can put that into your report to Place. Who sits on Place Committee normally that sits on here? Of course, Ian, you do. Oh, it looks like it's you, Ian. Oh, and Alison, of course. If you're happy to raise it as well, just to make sure it gets noted at Place and somebody follows it up. I don't know who. Yeah, Alison's nodding. Ian wants to come in.
Okay. Councillor Manders.
Yes, I will do, but I do have to point out that our roads get beaten up by heavy vehicles all the time. It's not just the university's double-decker bus. And really, it's not only just road surfaces, but all the effects of heavy vehicles, especially going over curbs, popping drain covers, cutting corners, bashing bollards, nudging lampposts. So all the list of things we've seen in the agenda tonight, the big damage is caused by the heavy vehicles. And it is very difficult indeed to try and actually trace those and the cause of damage. So the university is just the tip of the iceberg.
Sorry, if I may, Chair. I absolutely agree. I once reported somebody because I saw the lorry hit a bollard and then drive off, but I got his number plate and reported him in. Well, he hit and destroyed one of our bollards. He's paying for it. But Burnley Avenue does not have heavy traffic flows. Absolutely. Because it doesn't go anywhere. So apart from to and from halls of residence and the houses in the vicinity, so you do not really see. It's in a 7.5 tonne limited 7.5 tonne area, so there shouldn't be anything. It doesn't go anywhere anyway. So there's no reason anybody would drive down it. So I'm just thinking we can directly link, or we might potentially be able to directly link the degradation in the road to the university buses, because that is something that is clearly the only thing that's happening. If you're taking something like the Yule Road, which has got lorries and buses and everything, it becomes much more difficult. Here there's a direct thing. I'm sorry, I've made my point, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, right, okay. Right, I think we've explored that one. Are there any other comments? Oh. Councillor Green, you're on a roll tonight.
I'm on a roll, aren't I? Sorry. No, this is on the wish list on Appendix Annex 4. You've got both Brighton Road and Claremont Road. What state are both of those two in? that you've put them on the wish list, but they haven't made the main list.
I have a list and I can look that up for you. Sorry. So, big list, 900 roads. It will. So, which one? Sorry, we're looking for. Sorry, what I've written in Annex 4. Yeah, it'd probably be the easiest way for me to look it up. Sorry.
It's the A Road, the A243 Brighton Road, Portsmouth Road to Maple Road.
Yep. Important point to clarify, sorry, and it's one of the things, when the funding was worked out for the DFT, there is an element where last year it wasn't, the councils had to split it that way, but there was an encouragement to try and split it between A roads, Bs and Cs, Us, and then split up to the other functions, so such as about 15% went to structures and about 2% went to street lighting. So to maintain that, we've tried to create a split with what we've got in Annex 4, basically. So we've then looked at, as there's a degree of flexibility that's allowed with it, we do think there's a good balance to it because A roads do carry the majority of the traffic, and they're also much more expensive to do, which is why we don't put them forward for the capital programme typically, because like if you look at the work that's proposed on Coombe Lane West, for instance, that would take 17% of your budget that has been put forward for the capital programme as part of this report. You couldn't justify, in our view, putting one road forward for 17% of the total budget. So you try and balance it up with what you've got to a certain extent. I don't have the cost for Brighton Road to hand, but I'd be happy to clarify that point for the Chair. Not a problem at all.
Thank you very
much. And for yourself, both of you, just for a point of clarity, that's not a problem at all.
So that intrigues me, what you've said about the difference between the A and the B roads, because Claremont Road takes more buses, back to buses, than Brighton Road does. Even though Claremont Road is a B road, I would say it takes as much traffic, top of my head thinking about the two roads, and certainly way more buses, because pretty much every bus that goes Kingston, Surbiton goes down Claremont. So sorry, this is just fascinating to me. I just want to keep us all here all night to talk about highways. He waited hours for this discussion. Interesting that A roads are done to a higher standard than B roads, because some B roads are probably more essential.
Okay, brilliant. You should have been a highways officer. Right. Okay. That's a nice insight. Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, so I'm happy to do a response for Brighton Road and Claremont Road. Basically, in comparison to which other road was it? Sorry.
To each other.
Oh, to each other. Yeah, Brighton, sorry, as I've just actually looked them up here, Brighton scored marginally worse than Claremont, basically, in terms of road condition, which in some respects you'd expect for an A road, as it does carry... In principle, you'd think it would, but I'll bow to your knowledge on that one. So, yeah, cool.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, George. Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments on this item? Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Manders.
I just want to compliment the street lamp replacement programme and the column replacement programme as well. We've had, I think, I haven't added it up, but about at least 100 new lamps replaced, and probably a similar kind of figure with the lamp column as well. And we were asked earlier about metrics, and the good thing about the street lamp programme is that it produces, well, there's three metrics really. One is the cost of it, but two is the money saved in terms of electricity bills, and the third one is the carbon emissions saved as well. And it's all positive is the news behind that. But I'd also like to point out this is our second time around with LEDs, because they were done about 10 or 12 years ago. So, but in fact, the technology has improved so much, it's actually worthwhile replacing them again. So I think the council has done very well actually on street lamp replacement, and it's been one of the major factors in our carbon savings as a local authority. Thank you.
Well, fantastic. Fantastic. Let's go with George and then Councillor White.
On a separate point to that, as it's something that's come up in our shared service partner, the London Borough of Sutton, for instance, we were lucky enough to get some climate-related funding, because one of the things, just in terms of carbon saving, we basically are looking to try and be more environmentally friendly where we can with road resurfacing, because it's not the most environmentally friendly of functions, for want of a better word. So we've managed to get climate funding on condition that we use electric pavers, electric tools, higher level of recycled aggregate content in the tarmac that's being laid, basically. And just over one very small road, we're predicted to save about 30 tonnes of carbon. In a purely selfish way, and my attitude with this is that's external to the programme, the capital programme we've got in Sutton, and that is the type of grant that I'm willing to pursue for smaller roads. As whilst I don't doubt the ability and the quality of the more environmentally friendly methods of the construction, I wouldn't feel completely as confident to try that on an A or a B road, but we are definitely considering that for unclassifieds because I feel there's options out there to expand what we do and do it in a more environmentally friendly way. So that is something that we're actively looking at, and I just wanted to stress that as a point. As it does save on about a 200-metre long road, you can save about 30 tonnes of carbon. I know that doesn't sound a great deal, but when you think about the amount of, we're typically looking at about 6 to 7 kilometres of work with this programme, it adds up. So that is something that we're considering definitely, as it's very important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair, a tonne of carbon is basically the energy use of a household in a year.
Oh, okay. Good comparator. Councillor White.
Thank you very much. I'm actually going off on something slightly different, but it's sort of related. And just a question. I went away on holiday and there were forest bikes all over our borough. And I've come back and there seem to be a million lime bikes everywhere. Have we changed? Have we formally gone from forest to lime? I missed that. So when did that happen? Has it just happened in the last couple of weeks? Because does anybody, I know Ian's very interested in that, and I didn't know whether that was something that is related in any way.
I'll say that is 100% outside of my remit, so unfortunately I can't provide you with that information. Thank you.
Okay. Slightly off topic, but quick answer from Councillor Manders.
Okay, well, basically provision of e-bikes is a free-for-all, so anyone can set themselves up to supply it. They're not licensed as such. What has happened is individual boroughs have a sweetheart arrangement where we say, we're in contract with a particular supplier of bikes, and then we allocate spaces on pavements and so on for the parking. We don't really have that arrangement with Lime, where we do with Forest, and we're also going to, I think, have a renewal fairly soon. So the situation with Lime is that they're operating in Richmond, and so people cycle from, primarily really over the bridge, over Kingston Bridge, and a lot of them are students, and that's how they get to university or parties or whatever, and that's why you see a lot of the Lime bikes about. Also, Lime is extremely expansionist as well, and ultimately wants obviously to be the supplier in London. So I don't know if that answers the councillor's question.
Thank you very much. It's just, they honestly do seem to have gone from 0 to 1 million in 2 weeks.
That'll teach you to go on holiday. Right. Okay, well, if there's no further comments on the highways program. Sorry, we don't generally take comments from the public. But if you'd like to speak,
go for it.
Okay, go on. Quick, very quick.
I'll hold my hand up. That would be something I'd have to get referred to our street lighting officers, basically. Sorry, I should have made that clear. I only cover planned maintenance typically. They just get included with my report on an annual basis. Sorry, that is why I haven't mentioned street lighting as part of this, even though they're included in the report, because as it's noted in, one of the sections,
okay,
they've basically not got a program in place at this point as they're carrying out structural testing at the moment, and it's literally a case of if something fails on the structural testing, it will be included. Yes, yeah, a detailed program is yet to be developed. It's point 9. The program will be developed on a needs basis for an structural testing program in the 4th quarter. So yeah, I'm sure that's something our head of street lighting could comment on. Not a problem at all. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Manders.
Yeah, I can answer all these questions because I was the transportation portfolio holder for 2 years. Yes, the street lights will be capable in future of their output being centrally controlled. So at the moment anyway, they have a standard output. It may even be tuned to individual roads because obviously some of the street corners are closer to each other than others. But yes, it may be possible to do it centrally. And you know, at the moment anyway, certainly the council is looking at the software to do that. But clearly that would have to be done in consultation with local residents. You know, street lights, the first drive for street lights, the first supplies of gas and then later on electricity were for local authority street lamps. And so the gas and then the electricity industry grew out of that market. But they were put in very early. The reason why local councils, you know, adopted this novel technology early was because of public safety. You know, in terms of,
Thank you, Councillor. Why don't we carry this conversation on after the meeting? Thank you very much. We'll finish that item off. That's the end of item 8. Work programme. Members, please note the work programme at Appendix E of the agenda. There are no urgent items, so closing the meeting at 10:08. Thank you very much.